Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you how I built a witch's greenhouse in The Sims 4. It comes complete with a glass dome ceiling, a secret tunnel entrance, and all of your witchy needs. So I wanted to build this in Glimmerbrook, the town that Realm of Magic comes in. And I knew that I didn't want this to be a residential lot. I wanted it to be a community center where all witches and wizards could gather. But unfortunately, the community space option had a requirement for a community board, which wasn't really fitting the vibe that I wanted. So I ended up picking a generic lot because I knew that there weren't going to be any requirements for this space. So this idea had originally come to me when I was working on a different build that was actually a circular room. So I decided to carry that same concept over with this. So to create a circular room, you can grab any of the rounded room quadrants, and for this build I decided to choose the largest because I knew that I really wanted to try and fit a lot in this space. So you're going to duplicate that 4 times to get your circle. Then you're going to select your wall tool and hit Control, and that can delete the walls that you have built in there. So now you have a giant circular room. Now it's not exactly a circle, so you have to actually move the sides in one space at a time, and then you'll have a perfectly circular room. I learned that if you try and do more than one space at a time, it will try to delete extra walls. Now for the circular dome roof, you're going to go over to your roof section and select the circular roof. Go ahead and place it and then move each side to each edge of your build. From here you can adjust the pitch using the arrow at the top, and you can also adjust the eaves by selecting the little arrows on the sides. Now, initially I was thinking that I wanted the glass roof to go all the way down to the ground. So I started playing around with the eaves and the pitch to try and get that look that I was going for, using the circular pieces to create the actual dome. And as I was playing around with it, I was kind of running into the issue of, well, if I'm having the roof go all the way to the ground, how are the Sims going to get inside? And then the idea came to me to create a secret hidden tunnel entrance. So to do so, I had to create a basement going underneath the greenhouse. I created a very large basement space as I was trying to figure out where the stairs would work, where they would fit, and how long I wanted the tunnel to be. So basically the idea was that from the outside you would have this staircase that was essentially hidden by plants and trees, that if you found it, you would walk down the stairs through a tunnel, walk up another set of stairs, and then you would magically be inside of the greenhouse. I think this really helped play into the kind of spooky, witchy feel of the entire build, and I'm really glad that the idea randomly came to me. At this point, I wasn't really liking how the greenhouse was sitting level with the ground, so I decided to raise up the foundation a little bit. Then I just had to test to make sure that the secret tunnel stairs were still going to work. At this point, I also didn't like that the roof was going to be going all the way to the floor, so I decided to raise the eaves a little bit and go from there. Now for safety, I made sure to put some railings around the stairs on each side of the tunnel. I knew that it would just give it a more complete look, and it could add another gothic element to the build. When I started placing the windows, I saw that I was getting this odd clipping thing happening with the wall, and I figured it was where the walls were supposed to sit before I had deleted them. So I just decided to leave them in there because then it would kind of add a structural element to the build as well. Then I decided to raise the eaves up once more, give it a nice roof trim, and put on a really beautiful foundation. For the foundation, I wanted to keep kind of that earthy feel, so I decided to go with the nice stone pattern with a black trim. For the windows, I used the Greenhouse Haven windows, and I was alternating between some open ones and some closed ones just to give it the illusion of ventilation and that the space was actually being utilized. Then for the interior and exterior, I chose a simple black wood pattern. I initially wanted to use the greenhouse floor pattern, but once I placed it, I decided it looked way too busy, so I decided to go with this nice stone pattern to match the foundation. My next step was to put in the furniture. I knew that I was going to be putting a lot of plants in this build, so I wanted to make sure to get in all of the furniture first and then put in plants around it. So in the catalog, I just went through and selected all of the packs that I knew had the aesthetic that I was looking for. So paranormal, werewolves, realm of magic, vampires. I also selected spa day and eco lifestyle as well because I knew that I could pull some more plants and just different types of looks for this that I thought would match. Then I just started going down the line, literally item by item in the catalog. If I liked the piece and if it had a black or dark colored swatch, then I would go ahead and add it. I didn't really know exactly where I wanted to go with this build, but I knew that I would have to have surfaces to put plants on, some workstations for gardening, and a table for some witchcraft as well. I also knew that I wanted to put a sitting area. Aside from that, I really didn't know where I wanted to go with it. So I just went down the line in the catalog and started adding items as I liked them. Now I do use the Better BuildBuy mod by Twisted Mexi, which allows me to have it debug and live edit objects up all the time, and I can also have an expanded catalog, which is really helpful for me when I'm building because I can see all of the items at once and kind of start to plan ahead for what I want to use. But I am realizing that that doesn't really make for the best videos to show everyone how I'm building, so I'm going to work on that so that you can actually see more of the build space as opposed to staring at the catalog the whole time. Also, if you're new here, full disclosure, I get pretty high before I make these builds. So if you see some weird camera angles or if it seems like I'm jumping around a lot, just know that that's my building brain while under the influence. I really had no rhyme or reason when I was placing the plants. To select the plant that I wanted, I just made sure that it had either a black or a dark vase or that it kind of fit the aesthetic that I was looking for. And there really weren't many plants throughout all of the packs that I have that didn't fit the aesthetic. So I really just went through and placed them wherever I felt in that moment they fit. And sometimes it took some rearranging, but overall I kind of just went with the flow and just placed things where I liked them. I was really happy to add these little fairy statues. I really think they helped add to that whimsical gothic feel that I was going for. It was just such a beautiful ad. I also really wanted to add a water feature into this greenhouse, so I initially placed a fountain, but I didn't really like how large it was, and when you size the fountains down, they do this really weird thing where they clip funny, so I placed it in there, but you'll see later that I end up taking it out because it just didn't fit the space the way that I wanted it to. At this point in the catalog, I started reaching more of the decor items, and that reminded me that I wanted to place a seating area in here. So I started adding the chairs that I wanted and then went back to adding some more of the paranormal and realm of magic items to really give it a space that would fit a witch. So just going through item by item, seeing which ones I liked, seeing which ones fit the space. I didn't really know how I wanted to place things, but I also didn't really want to lose track of them. So a lot of times I will just put things into the build randomly and then rearrange later once I get some sort of idea on how I want the space laid out. Then as I was going line by line in the catalog, I started to get into the plants again. So I was thinking about if I had a greenhouse, I would pack it full of plants. So I would have plants on absolutely every surface, on the floor, on tables, literally anywhere that I could fit a plant, I would. Something else that was really important for me to keep in mind was that I wanted the Sims to be able to easily walk around the space. Sims can be so sensitive when they're walking around places, and if you put things too close together, they will not walk around. So I tried to be very conscientious of that while I was building. A trick I like to use when I'm building is using the 9 and 0 keys to raise and lower objects. So as you can see here, I'm using the 9 key to raise up the flower pot to sit on top of the little table there. It doesn't always work for surfaces that have automatic slots to clip into, but I'll show you a trick for that later. Another trick I use often is using Option or Alt to freely place objects. Next, we needed to place some lighting, but I knew that because we had a glass roof, we couldn't have any lights hanging from the ceiling, so I figured why not put the lights on the floor, then it would be illuminating the walkway. From here, just continuing to add items as I find them in the gallery. I decided to add another table to work from and add a table for our seating area as well. Now here is the trick you can use if you are trying to put something on a table and it's clipping automatically into different slots. So all you have to do is place the item on the surface, then move the entire surface, in this case the table, over, then grab that item and hit Alt and move it back to the space where you want it. Then you can place it exactly where you want it. It'll be floating in the air and you can move the table back and it'll be exactly in the spot that you wanted it to be in. And once again, back to placing plants. I just started placing them anywhere I saw a hole or anywhere that I thought we needed a plant. I even started placing plants within different structures. Like I put a couple of plants within the plant structure that I had put the fairies on top of. Literally just anywhere I felt needed some greenery, I started putting some greenery. Something else that I wanted to keep in mind with this build was because the entire exterior was windows, I wanted to have a lot of plants surrounding those exterior windows. That way, it was a little hard to see in, so it really added to the mystery of the greenhouse itself. Not only do you have the secret tunnel to get in, but it's kind of a secret as to what's going on in there. I know for me, if this were my greenhouse, I would want it to be my sanctuary where I could go and have some peace and be undisturbed. When dealing with curved walls, you really need a lot of flexibility as far as rotating objects. So I like to go to the Sims 3 camera, hit Option or Alt, and then click, and you can freely rotate things on their axis. Another handy tip is to use the bracket keys to size up and down objects. You can use the left bracket key to size down and the right bracket key to size up. This works for most items and becomes really handy when you're trying to create a unique build. I love string lights and I try to include them on every single one of my builds, but let me tell you, this one was tricky. I chose some string lights from the debug of Cottage Living because it's just a nice single strand, but no matter what I was doing to put them in, I could not get them to fit correctly. They were either sitting way too low or they were clipping outside of the glass dome. So I spent way too much time trying to mess with this before I finally realized that I could go down to my basement and use the 0 and 9 keys to raise up the lights to get them exactly where I wanted them. So after a little bit of tweaking, I finally got them to sit exactly where I wanted them, and I was able to just duplicate and rotate to get 2 strings of lights. Something was telling me that I absolutely had to have a tree in this build. So it took a little bit of time of going through the catalog to find a tree that I knew would fit. Plus, I had to make sure it didn't clip into the lights or clip into the roof. So I finally found a tree that I loved, and I decided that it looked kind of odd sitting by itself. So I decided to size down an old tire to make it look like a makeshift planter. I was also able to find a little piece of dirt in debug that I sized up and placed in the planter as well so that it looked like the tree was actually growing from some dirt. I also had a mosquito plant that was sitting by itself, so I decided to do the same thing with duplicating the tire and the dirt, using the 9 key to raise it up, and then using the 9 key to raise up the plant to make it look like it was planted. And then, of course, more plants, because it was still looking pretty barren at this point, and I really wanted this to feel very lush and somewhat overgrown with plants and foliage. And now for your viewing pleasure, a plant placing montage, because I am not kidding you, I put so many plants in this thing. It just kept going and going and going. As I was starting to near the end of my build, I wanted to check to see how it would look at nighttime, in the morning, and at dusk. I feel like this is really important when you're doing a build because you need to see how the lights sit and just overall how it's going to look at all times of the day. And here she is in all of her glory. To review, this is a 30 by 20 generic lot that uses 18 packs and costs 36,714 simoleons. It is available on the gallery and can be found by searching SariesGamer. Comment to let me know if you would like me to upload a part 2 to show the exterior landscaping process for this build. Otherwise, I plan on doing many other builds like this, so please like and subscribe so that you don't miss any of my content. Stay stony, Simmers!